What's up, everyone? Welcome to Three Chicks in a Pod. I am Megan Price. We got Jen, the producer, in the middle, and we got Kari at the end. Hi, ladies.
Hello. Sorry, my camera is deciding to want to move.
No problem. No problem. How's everybody's week going?
Great. How about yours?
Very good.
It's been okay. I've been a little under the weather, but other than that, I am good.
Good.
Of course we are. We're three chicks in a pod.
Talking sports.
Right?
All right. So we have a really interesting show for you guys this week, and we're going to touch on a few topics. And so these topics, probably a couple of them will be reoccurring topics, just because of the amount of time and the amount of issues or weight of these issues. So I think let's start with Roe versus Wade and the things that have changed recently with that, and then how that will affect Title IX. Kari, you want to start us off?
Right. With all of my research that I read through, the recurring comment that was made over and over again is, and we've even discussed how Title IX should be a living document that should be constantly evolving. And the statement was made in various forms is, this is exposing a crack in Title IX, where if we let this crack continue to spread, it will start degrading what Title IX has happened. And it could be that the very next generation can experience less in the options in sports,
right,
due to the degradation of Roe versus Wade and Title IX.
Right. And I know that's something that we touched on earlier. And if you're just tuning in, you haven't seen the show before, this is the 50th anniversary of Title IX. This month is. And so we've been talking about it all month. And we actually did an episode before June talking about Title IX. It'll be something that will reoccur on our show constantly. And as these things change, we will definitely be discussing, just because it hasn't actually passed all the way through. Hey, Mike. It hasn't actually passed all the way through that they've outlawed abortion. I know here in Texas, it's definitely going through some issues. And somebody, you know what? No matter what you believe, guys, go out and vote. Go out and vote on a local level, on a state level, because that's exactly where these type of votes count. If you feel like, oh, your vote doesn't count in the presidential race, cool, that's your opinion. But on a local level, your vote really does matter. So definitely women need to get out and vote however you choose, however you feel, but definitely try to make a difference for women. Hey, Will, I see you. We will definitely call you back whenever it's ready. Yes, 5 minutes before the end of the show. So, Jen, do you have anything on this?
So I've been doing a lot of research too, because it's just a fear I've had. And I still want to kind of go more in depth on Title IX, like even in segments next week. My question is this: Title IX is an amendment, right?
Right.
So technically, it's a law, right? But it literally will take an act of Congress to overturn it. Whereas Roe v. Wade was a Supreme Court ruling that just takes the Supreme Court to overturn it. So my fear is that it will definitely impact, but my question is, legally, will it impact? So I don't know. I'm not a lawyer.
Definitely there's going to be some ramifications from this, and there already is. Like, okay, on the Olympic level, there was a track star who had recently she had an abortion, and she had some drugs in her system, and they did not allow her to compete in the Olympics. And so this is even before they decided to try and overturn Roe versus Wade. And then, Kari sent us an article that was talking about a tennis player that came from Czechoslovakia. And her comment was she thought this country was free, and that this was something that even in her country, she had access to women's health care.
When it comes down, here's where the crutch of it is when women's reproductive rights are taken away from the woman itself to make the choice, and it's made by the bigger group, we're going to go backwards, where it is expected instead of pushing family, setting up your families and having your children, if that's what you wish, in your late 20s, 30s, whenever that is, as opposed to it's the breeding time is, in your early 20s. So that's where the concern was centered around with a lot of them, is that the fact that the women would no longer, losing that ability to have control over the decisions on their reproductive system and their reproductive time, when they want to start their family, as opposed to what is dictated by the masses. And it, back to what Megan said, please don't become the silent M and go out and speak. Whatever your voice is, whatever your thoughts are, do not let that M become silent, because the masses do need to speak.
Mm-hmm.
There was an interview that I saw last year, and I'll post it to the group later on this evening, where it was, if you guys don't know, my favorite boxer is Clarissa Shields, lover, she's out of Flint, Michigan, very vocal. And she did an interview with Stephen A. Smith, where she was talking about that she's going to be taking off to have a family in 2024, and how it is much different for a woman athlete, a female athlete, because they have to plan when they're able to have kids, because obviously your bodies change. We're not all Cheryl Swoops. We can't have a baby and just be on the court 6 weeks later. Like, she's just superwoman for doing that, and, it's very different than male athletes. Male athletes can go out and have as many kids as they want, and it's not going to affect their career, really. And that's not a dig at them. That's just a fact. Whereas female athletes, they either have to plan around that. And I know it would be easy for plenty of people to sit there and say, oh, well, just don't have sex. Don't be sexually active, and this will never happen to you. Well, if that's the case, then I guess we should never have any political sex scandals. We should never have any sex scandals in the church. We should never have any sex scandals at all, if it's just that easy to simply say, just don't have sex.
Right.
Well, I mean, the shoe fits on both feet.
Exactly.
And men should be able to get vasectomies, because that can be reversed. Just saying.
Indeed. Very much indeed.
I mean, if it's easy for us to tell women not to have sex, then men should keep it in the pants too.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Sorry, put me straight out there, but
Right. And what I like the most is where we talked about how where Title IX is actually a changing document, how it changes over the years, and because it applies in different areas. And so as something like this happens, where Roe versus Wade is about to get overturned, if it does, this is something that it will apply to, it will matter to. Like, there's already in the Olympics, another example, which they have the anti-doping committee, right? And I do agree with that, because I'm very much against steroids in sports. You probably don't, I have a different view about it outside of sports, but within sports, I don't agree with using steroids. So they then allow this other track star to compete, because she had too much testosterone in her system, but it was natural. Like, she wasn't taking anything. That's just what her body produced. And so why is it that is regulated, whereas if a male had estrogen in his system, they would have let him compete?
That's where Title IX is needing to be a constant battle. And that's something else that in that article that I shared with you ladies, is it was said, hey, listen, speak up, speak out. This isn't something that once it's done, it's done.
Right.
You've got to keep pushing. Otherwise it's going to erode and crack. And then again, our future generations will not have the same luxuries or where we are now, and just think we're not equal yet as far as the sporting goes. So are we willing to let that go as far as we've come, to force some on down the road someone else to stand up and push again to get this far again? So, I mean, it has to be something that you're passionate about, but at the same time, we cannot let people that are not representing us take away what we have fought this hard to get.
Oh, let's just face facts. Abbott's going to be PO'd. when his
Ugh.
mistress gets knocked up and his own law that he created, he can't have her have an abortion and he'll have to have her arrested because he sends her to Oklahoma.
Okay, so I have such a story about that, and I can't say it on air, but
no, we'll talk after.
He is in a wheelchair, so I'm not exactly sure how active he is. But
don't care.
Yeah.
I'll send you some clips of Madison Cawthorn.
Well, the other thing they did say is we would be forcing women to either leave their home state and or our country to go to potentially a third world country to get the reproductive rights that we have fought for, or were fought for us.
Right.
And do we want to force our athletes through that? No. Do we want?
I mean, they're already fighting for equal conditions, and then now we want to take that. Now this is going to be taken away. So, just shocking that that's even happened, and even that it's coming about. But it's a topic that we will continue to touch on. And so, while we know that it is extremely sensitive, and we hope to never offend anybody, this is definitely our own personal views. So, yes. If it's not your view, we completely understand. And it's not something that we would feel like, to slander someone over, but this is our personal views at this moment.
And me personally, I welcome listening to somebody else explain their view. And please share that with me. But also know that when I share with you, or when I say something, I'm not challenging you. I'm asking for you to, as I would want you to do, is hold me accountable for what I'm saying. Right. Or where I'm getting my information. I don't want you to pull information from the air and then when I ask, get offended. Same thing for me is I don't want to just be pulling from my feelings. And then when you ask, not be able to provide backup for that. So that's, hard conversations also deserve to be honest with information that you can back with.
Absolutely agree. Okay, so let's slide over to our next topic, and it's the ABA versus the NBA. As you guys know, the NBA actually, it was a merger with the ABA. My team was an original ABA team, the Spurs team, so they're one of the oldest teams around. And so while I was not alive for this, I know about the merger quite a bit. Jen, you want to talk to us about that?
Sure. So, and we can go in more detail next week. But here's the synopsis, because this is something that's very important. I hate it when people are overpromised and underdelivered, especially when it's contractually agreed upon. But in 1970, as we all know, the ABA and the NBA merged, right? So part of that merger was the ABA had a pension for their players. The NBA was supposed to was supposed to be a part of this. And by the way, side note, I have to thank Jacob Christner because he brought this to my attention. So, I'm sorry, y'all.
You're fine.
But the NBA has not paid people. I was reading an article the other day about the, who is it? Sorry, I have like multiple articles written up about it. Sam Smith, who played for the ABA, and he died at the age of 79 on May 18th. And just so you guys know, this article is from USA Today. But he never got his pension. Never once. We literally have ABA basketball players who are living under bridges and bus terminals and are homeless, and they're supposed to be getting a minimum of $2,000 a month.
Wow.
Like, even rent prices now, that'll still like give you a place to stay.
Right.
Like, you might have to get a job, but it'd give you benefits, health insurance. And
And so do you know if it's like, did they honor any of these pension plans, or just
none?
Like, none of them were honored?
One of the articles I read said that if they played in the NBA a minimum of 3 years, of the 11 teams, 4 were absorbed in the merge. 7 teams of men did not get absorbed into the NBA.
Oh, wow.
Those men, regardless of how long they played, got nothing out of it because they never did the 3 years in the NBA.
And they were promised that contractually.
Right. And it's $400 per year that you played. And that gentleman played 5 years. So that's where I read several articles around him, and his was they're looking at $400 per year that you paid per month. So like if you played 3 years in the ABA, it would be $1,200. The saddest thing is to me is it would cost roughly $1.3 million to fund per year, which is less than what they donate to charity.
Wow.
Every year. And in 10 years, this would not even be something that would need to be funded because these men are all in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, and not, the average lifespan, that's 10 years is going to cover most of it.
Their families are going to have to take over the lawsuits. And honestly, the NBA is going to have to pay. And
so is there any active legislation against them, against the NBA
legislation?
Right
no, but there's active lawsuits right now.
Or that's what I mean. Active lawsuits against them.
Active lawsuits right now. And they're trying, and the NBA keeps saying that they're going to settle and they're trying to get the money to people, but they're really not trying that hard.
And this is where,
well, we know how the NBA runs their sister company, the WNBA. So I think we already know what type of company we're dealing with.
Exactly. And that's what really hit me because they're treating ABA players and their families exactly like,
so an interesting thing is it could also be kind of pulled in, hi Vince, it can also be pulled in under Title IX, so to speak, because 80% of these athletes were Black. These men were targeted and they were allowed to come directly from high school into, this is what things I read today, directly from high school. They could join the ABA from high school. It did not, which the NBA had outlawed. So they could join the ABA and begin getting paychecks without having to go to college. So that was far more attractive to those that were coming from lower socioeconomic paths, which then brings in the Title IX is that it's based on skin tone and socioeconomic status. So, it's one of the things that are now a protected right through Title IX.
But not at that time.
That's interesting. That's really interesting because a lot of people always look at Title IX as something for women, but as we talked about it before, how it applies to different genders or different races and how the amendment has actually changed over time.
Right. And it has, but at that time it was more for women and education, not necessarily athletics. It was more for education point of view. As it's gotten there. And now it did stem from the Civil Rights Amendment. So if that's what the article was saying, that I can totally get behind. And I didn't I didn't read the same article you did, Kari, obviously. Right. But I'm just going with what I know.
No, I picked up on that because some of the stuff I read about Title IX is as it has evolved. Today, it's not just women and it doesn't cover just this extracurricular activities and math, science, engineering, technology. It is more evolving to incorporate where all people should have the equal rights to this. So socioeconomic status, your sexual preference, your skin color. I mean, all of those things should be erased to make it even. What I'm saying is the ABA kind of targeted the lower socioeconomic basketball players. 80% of the people that would be covered if the NBA were to pay them are Black.
Wow.
So you've got socioeconomic and you've got the skin tone covered as a target. And that's where I was like, it kind of just parallels where we've talked so much about Title IX and, making it an even playing field. Here it is in real life where it could, these men didn't have the same access to the industry. Now, the gentleman you were talking about, he decided not to go with the NBA and chose ABA because he could go right out of high school and get paid as opposed to having to go through college. Right, so he did make that choice. However, that should not be held against him because he made a choice based on what was the best benefit for
And
him
at that
at that
time, he
time.
was told that they would still get paid.
Correct.
That's where the caveat is. Yeah. And so that's what the caveat is, because they were essentially all promised, no matter what flowery words they're trying to spin on it now. At the end of the day, every single one of it, one of these guys that played were promised that their pensions.
Right.
And they're not being paid. So to me, their families need to be the ones, following through on the lawsuits too. And they need to get restitution. They need to get interest. They need to get everything.
And what's it?
And we can delve deeper in this too next week, because this one's something that I hate it. And I know you two are the same way when people are done, but I also know we're like running short on time, and we want to have a really fun stuff to talk about too.
Absolutely.
All right, so we'll slide over to our last topic, and as we're going into Father's Day weekend, we just kind of wanted to talk about what our fathers meant to us and in our sports journey. Personally, my dad was a sports writer from, I want to say, age 3 for me until age 11. The first games that I ever went to, obviously, were with him, and we were kind of on the lower economic side. As y'all know, journalists aren't paid a whole lot. And so I had an older brother, but he was pretty busy. And so I was with my dad all the time. Like I was at games with him that he covered all the time. I've literally been in several press boxes and places. And it was just, he was just so vital in my love for sports. And while our favorite sports were different, he was a huge football fan, and I'm obviously a huge basketball fan. So it was different, but it was something that we bonded over until his very last days. The last tournament, NCAA tournament that we got to watch together, he was ill, but I will say that's somewhat of a blessing, because we got to be at home and watch the entire tournament together. So just many, many stories I have, but he's absolutely the reason that I'm involved in sports, not just working wise with sports, but just my love of sports came from my dad. Absolutely.
Jen?
Kari?
No, you go ahead, Jen. Okay. I love your story with your dad.
I love your story, Megan.
Thank you.
Well, I have stories with my dad. I will say this. My dad has told me, and my mom forgets this sometimes, it's cute, that his biggest regret as a father was letting me become a swimmer, because I had such a natural stride. But no one has ever pushed me athletically, career-wise, academically, as much as my parents. That being said, my deep love for my Carolina Panthers truly, truly, truly does come from going to the games with my dad. And also when I ran cross country, there's this kind of long road. Our guest knows about this road, but that I would go train down, and my father would be like, get your feet to your butt now, girl, feet to your butt. And he would never call me girl, by the way, unless it was that. He was just trying to go Army drill sergeant on me. But and I have a couple other stories I had researched that are that too. But yeah, I don't know. My parents are my best friends. My parents and my husband are my best friends.
Awesome.
And I'll tell everybody that, and I'm really proud to be my dad's daughter. And, my love of sports comes from him. The competitive side of me comes from him. The I'm not going to lose my cool until it's deserved comes from him. So.
Awesome. All right, Kari, what do you have?
Well, so mine's probably a little cheesy on the cheesy side, but it's at the same time, it's kind of cute. I'm the oldest of 4. So I had, my dad and me got to do, a lot of one-on-one time until I was 4, almost 4 years old. So that being said, Sundays were football and popcorn. And I'm old enough that the pull tab beer cans. So I got to do the pull tab. Anything that came above where the pull tab was, I could drink. So, I remember these, but this story has been said so many times that now my memory, which I know it isn't my personal memory, but it's been formed, is It was a Sunday afternoon. Daddy went in to pop the popcorn on the stove, and I was jumping up and down the living room, cheering, screaming, go, 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 go. Daddy comes in and he says, sis, what's going on? I said, man got ball, man got football, went run and went boom. And so the birth of football happened that day. So, I've been a football fan since I was big enough to be able to stand on my own. But just the time, it represents time. It started out representing time that I got to spend with my dad. And then as we got older, we got to go to, we're privileged to get to go to Kansas City Chiefs games and be in a stadium. And we would chase around the signature when they come to the Southwest Missouri in the winter months. They used to do those as a promotional tour. Well, we would go stand in line so we could get signatures of the Royals and the Cardinals. And I got to talk to George Brett and Ken Brett and Daryl Quisenberry. I have his signature. And all the bigs in the mid to late 80s, I have. Flip it over to Kansas or to St. Louis, and we would go to their games and in the old stadium. I have not been privileged enough to go to the new one, but they took my son to the new stadium. Not that I'm bitter or anything about that. But as a family of four, we lived. We had farm animals, and we couldn't do a lot of the nationwide vacations. But a 3-hour trip one way to go see a baseball game and come back home. Those were really neat times. Lots of bonding. So things like that were fun, and I can remember that. And I've met Ozzie Smith, and oh my gosh, the grocery list of St. Louis Cardinals came to a lot bigger caravans would come down. And we would, I have so many of the greats of 80s, I can't even list them all off, that I've been able to meet in person, albeit go down an assembly line with a ball to get a signature, but I got to do that. Those are things that my parents provided, and it was just part of my childhood, and it's something that's my memories of lifetimes.
I love that. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and bring our guest on. We have Will Vogel, who does Basket Bros, which is a part of Sideline Sports. Hi, Will. How are you?
Hey, ladies. How are you guys?
Doing really well. You want to give us a story, since it's Father's Day weekend, about your father in sports and kind of your journey with sports?
So growing up, I have 2 other siblings. I have a twin sister and I have an older brother. And every morning when we lived in London, in Germany, when we lived overseas, my brother and I would go downstairs and watch soccer next to my dad, and watch soccer all morning into the afternoon in our pajamas. And I'm fortunate my dad's still around, and I'm in the same house as him, so I every so often still watch soccer with him or golf or whatever's on. But those are the memories I cherish. And he played Division II soccer, my dad, which cool. In turn made my brother play soccer in high school, and I played middle school soccer. I was the only one in my family to play basketball, so I played basketball. I was the only one who really did. My brother did soccer and golf. My dad did tennis and soccer in college in Division II. I did soccer and basketball at 2 different times in my life. And then my sister just did soccer. My mom did not do other sports, but and then my dad's dad played baseball. So, yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. And I think that's pretty common for most of us, that our parents are the ones that kind of brought us to sports. And we all kind of went our own way with it. Will, you want to talk about the show that you do on Sunday nights? What time does it come on?
8 p.m. Eastern.
Awesome. And Jen is actually the producer for that show as well, you guys. Will, talk to us about that show and what it's about.
So Basket Bros is a show produced by Jenn Lewis. We got Jay Nelson, aka Denzel Snipes. We got Dom DeRubis and Jacob Christner. It's about basketball 2000s and back. It is called Basket Bros, hence my name, Basket Bro Will, tonight. And on Sunday, we had the privilege of interviewing Jordan Long, and we brought up a bunch of topics. Every so often, we do a legend of every show we do a legend of the week, which this past week was Gary Payton. And then this past week, and we do a bunch of what ifs. We pretend we're in a time machine. We go back in time. And this what if was Jordan, if he misses the shot against Craig Elo, what would happen in the career?
Right.
What else was the topics? But yeah, it's basketball 2000s and back. It's a fun show. It's very interactive. I hope eventually we can get more interactive with our crowd. But yeah, we always are willing to have guests. I made a Facebook group. I'm pretty sure all three of you are part of it. I invited all of you. I highly recommend anybody who's watching this, if you want to be a guest, feel free to message me on Facebook, because I'm probably, no offense to the other three, is the best one to get back to you right away. Because I will tell you yes or no, and I will ask the other three. But yeah, it's always fun thinking of topics. Jen always thinks of good topics too. I'm not going to be on this week's episode. I am unfortunately out of town. But Jen brought up a really good topic, and I hope we do it this weekend. I'll probably end up watching the show on replay. Is fathers and sons who played in the NBA. So it stinks I'm missing this episode, but you know what? I bet you they're going to do fine without me.
Awesome. Well, make sure you guys check out Sideline Sports. We are all over the place. You can find us on Facebook. If you want to find us on Twitter, it's Sideline Sport 1. I think we're all a part of that as well.
I'm not.
I
don't have Twitter.
Oh, okay. And if you can't find it by looking it up like that, just go to my page, Queen of Hoop, on Twitter, and you can find me. I'm linked to that as well. So make sure you check out Sideline Sports. We have shows every single day. Every sport is covered. And make sure to come back next week for 3 Chicks in a Pod, your only all-female cast on Sideline Sports. Do you ladies have any shout-outs before we go?
I just need to make a clarifying statement real quick.
Go ahead.
Boy.
Carrie, my boo was because you're a Cards fan and I'm a Cubs fan. I think you knew that. I just wanted to clarify before I get roasted on the internet for booing you.
You know,
but I love the story.
And yours is that, so it's okay.
You know, and you can't help where you're born and raised.
Yeah, you can.
AKA, I'm a Cowboys
go away,
fan.
Connecticut.
All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching, commenting, and sharing. We really appreciate it. And check us back next week as we continue with our Title IX coverage for the entire month. Also, we have daily posts about Title IX facts. Check out the group. You can add any one of us on Facebook, or the group is public. So thank you guys, and we will see you back next week.
See you later.
Have a great one, people.